I am from India. I worked for 40 years as a nuclear scientist and I am retired. Concurrently, while working as a nuclear scientist, I also worked for the People's Science Movement for 50 years. So 40 years as a nuclear scientist, 50 years as a professional science communicator. That's my background. Now, I also serve as the chairman of the National Center for Science Communicators of India, and I also work as the president of the STEAM Academy, that is for science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. That's what we do. I am only a small atom in the macromolecule of People's Science Movement of my country. We have several People's Science Movements. Out of that, I have chosen one of the People's Science Movements from my home state, that is Kerala, Kerala. Now, first I will give you a profile of my state. We are 30 million strong in our state. We live in a land area of 40,000 square kilometers. And we have a human development index 0.784, which is very different from the rest of my country. We have a life expectancy of 77 years, 4 years lesser than that of Slovenia, but the best in my country. We are a womanly state. When I say we are a womanly state, we mean that we have a sex ratio 1,084 females for 1,000 males. That's our gender ratio. We are also an exceptionally radioactive state. We have annual radiation dose of 4 milligray per year. That is because my state has a large radioactive tract, 55 kilometers long, 5 kilometers wide, 500,000 tons of thorium, that is called the monazite sand. This monazite sand is in my state. More importantly than the physical features of my state, we have an excellent science communication network. We have 60,000 scientists, activists in the state. That is network between 1,300 network points. If you do it at the back of the envelope calculation, you can find there are 2 science activists per 100 of our population. 2 science activists per 100 of our population. And if you see their distribution, homogeneous distribution, there are 15 science activists per 10 square kilometer of the area. My state, Kerala, is considered the most livable state because the standard of living and material prosperity is fairly good, and is also the most diable state, the finest place to expire, to die, because the geriatric care and the scientific management in the old age is exceptionally great. That is the special feature of my state. I must express my deep sense of appreciation to Professor Edward Kobel, the president of the Slovenian State Foundation, the Science Foundation, and Professor Andras Isbek for their grace, for their kindness in permitting me, in allowing me to speak on a non-European subject. But I will ensure, and I will historically recall and refresh my memory, and those of historians also, that we had excellent connections with Europe. Our windows were open to the world. And not only that, the language development itself was a European gift to us. I will historically visit those things before I give a presentation of my subject. This is called a case, the Kerala case. In management institutes, when we speak of a case, there is either a case report or a case study. I shall be oscillating between the two. A case study, because some of the methodologies and practices and protocols we have followed are probably applicable, mutatis mutandis, with other geographies. That's my hope. Second one, it's a case report in the sense that it has not been reported elsewhere in literature in a comprehensive fashion, that for the last 60 years, 50 odd years, 60 years, 60,000 people were engaged in a scientific endeavor of a very different nature. So as a case report, I'll give the descriptive factors. As a case study, I will describe some of the methodologies we do this. India is celebrating the 75 years of independence. I bring greetings to Slovenia, the Republic of Slovenia, for its celebration this year of the 30th year of its independence. We also bring in our best wishes to Slovenia, because Slovenia is assuming the presidency of the European Council this year. All our best wishes, all our greetings with the people of the Republic of Slovenia. Now, let me come back to my subject. The first time, firm evidence, 1498, Vasco da Gama came to India. Through the Cape of Good Hope, a long maritime route was created, and he set his feet on the beaches of Kerala at a place called Calicut. So Calicut was the first place we had the physical intimacy with the Portuguese segment of the European civilization. It was basically trade and commerce. We are well known for our spices, and trade and commerce flourished from that. That is the first memorable, significant, historic encounter my state, the state of Kerala, had. Now, I must also mention here that we speak a language called Malayalam, M-A-L-A-Y-A-L-A-M. It is a palindrome. You can write it forward, you can write it backward, spelling wise, it will read the same. 30 million people speak this language. And we are a very volatile people in the state. We move out of the state, out of the country, in search of a job, in search of a profession, in search of a vocation or an occupation. And 3 million of us are outside our state. Although we speak Malayalam as our language, 20% of us speak English. Some of us speak good English, some of us speak better English, and there are a few people in my hometown, they write excellent English, probably in the classical Shakespearean style. So we have that tradition of a bilinguality in our state. Now, in 1498, I mentioned the first gift to Malayalam came from Dr. Herman Gundert in 1838. We should call him with the tender, loving care like a father, he brought out our language, Malayalam. The first Malayalam dictionary into English was prepared by him in 1872. He translated the Holy Bible into Malayalam. The first grammar book in my language was written by Dr. Herman Gundert. But for him, my language would not have developed the sophisticated status of conveying the finest of science and its content today. So we owe a lot to this European gift to my language, Malayalam. That is gift number one. Now I come to gift number two historically. That is a European gift to Malayalam, which I call the first science book in Malayalam was written by Hendrik van Rijn. That book is called Hortus Malabaricus. Hortus Malabaricus means the garden of Malabar. Kerala and Malabar were identical in those times. Therefore, he gave the title, The Garden of Malabar. This is the first book written with Malayalam script and alphabet. And it is the first science communication book written in Malayalam. And it took 5 years, 1678 to 1703, to prepare this book. 742 medicinal plants are discussed and described with the sketches in that book. It runs to 12 volumes, 1,240 pages, and is a botanical treatise. Even today, plant scientists have not fully deciphered or decoded what has been embedded in those 1,240 pages. It continues to be an enigma to botanical researchers and to plant scientists. This book, Hortus Malabaricus, is the finest book we have in science communication. Now, coming back to more recent times, we are coming to the renaissance of my state, the renaissance of my language also. In 1957, the renaissance was in full floating level. One school science teacher who holds a bachelor's degree in science and a licentiate to trade. Our teachers are BSc LTs. He was a science teacher. He decided that the library movement of the state was catching on. He used this as a chain reaction for a multiplication effect. Wherever there is a library, wherever there are books, people gather. He decided this is an attractive place to market and sell science culture. He got a few books translated into science content and fed it into the supply chain of the library movement. And that was the beginning. It was in 1957. 1957 is critically important because for the first time in the history of my country, a leftist-oriented Marxist government came into power by democratic processes, by the ballot process, by Vox Populi. So a democratically elected Marxist government with leftist leanings and progressive ideas on one front, 1957, and the school teacher who is the prime mover for a library movement on this side, convergence of two events. Along with that, fortuitously, a third convergent factor came, that this is what I am going to describe to you as the Bombay nuclear romance. In 1957, a scientist trained on the sensitive elevations of nuclear physics, Dr. Homi Bhabha, shoulder to shoulder with the topmost nuclear scientists of the Cavendish laboratory, he returned to India and wanted to put India on the nuclear orbit with a massive nuclear program. For that program, he was looking for the bright and brainy sparks of Indian scientists and colleges, Indian students of science and engineering from colleges. 1957. One electrical engineer called Dr. MP, he was not a doctor at that time, MP, we called him MP Parameswaran, a tongue-twisting name in European languages. MP was selected by Dr. Bhabha to undergo training in the training school. He learned nuclear science and nuclear engineering. Thereafter, he moved to Soviet Union, to Russia for higher studies for his doctoral dissertation. He went there, worked on nuclear engineering, but he was fascinated, well in love with the major science revolution going on at the Soviet Union. He told me that is called the Ruskaya Nauchnaya Kommunistnaya Revoluция. That was happening at its full peak in the Soviet Union. He absorbed the basic features, the fundamental factors of that, came back to India. He was totally immersed in the Russian model of science communication in the early 60s. Immediately, he arrived at the Atomic Research Center, Indian Research Center in India. He spoke to his colleagues, bilingual friends who speak English and Malayalam, and he gathered 100 people who speak Malayalam around him, who are nuclear scientists and engineers, or engineering scientists, I would call them. With this critical mass of 100 people, and with the background of the Russian model, he went into a production model. He thought, let 100 flowers bloom. He also said that a little madness is required for good things to happen. Kerala was described by a spiritual leader long ago as a lunatic asylum. A lunatic asylum where people are suffering from bipolar disorder or schizophrenic disabilities. That was the stamp which was put on my state long ago by a spiritual leader. But my nuclear leader said, we should have a small amount of madness to do good things. And the good thing he wanted to do was science communication in his own way. And that is how we started the program. That's the genesis of the program. But we should have a slightly closer look at what he did. He brought these 100 people together and asked each one of us, I was working with him at that time, that you should write 2 articles on the best subject you are familiar with, in the most authentic and authorial voice. 2 subjects. And this should be presented to the rest of our groups as a colloquium. And it will be commented upon and critically viewed. And thereafter, it will be sent to our home state 1,000 kilometers away for publication in Malayalam. So that was the first translation job which we did, for which our language at that point of time was not developed enough to deal with the technicalities. We didn't have a sound, sober, technical glossary or vocabulary. We created it, Herman Gundert's dictionary, which gave a collection of the Malayalam words in English. Using that as the critical instrument, we managed to create 10,000 words, absolutely novel words, newfangled expressions, not familiar to the linguists, but we were able to express our ideas through that. And then we looked for a proof of the pudding test. And the proof of the pudding test was, we took 2 classic books, Source Book of Atomic Energy by Samuel Glaston, Nuclear Physics by Irving Kaplan. Both are considered classic treatises and extremely important for the nuclear scientists. We translated these 2 books into Malayalam, our mother tongue, and sent it for publication to the linguists, and they approved it, and it became part of our science literature campaign. That was the proof of concept and the proof of the pudding, that the language is capable of handling the most sophisticated principles and concepts of the most advanced domains of science that we have done. Then, after having established this, the capability and competence of the language has been now well established. But that is meant for the higher thinking segments of the society. We thought that the supply chain in science culture begins with the children. So we prepared a plan, we designed a plan for children under 14, and we brought out a magazine called Eureka. This Eureka is a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon which has 2 parallels in the history of science literature anywhere in the world, I presume. It costs only 0.19 euro. Low cost, high value. For children under 40. 500,000 copies are being printed at its peak time. This is exclusively on science. There is no non-science content or matter inside this book. And these 500,000 copies are distributed to schools and groups of children, and each magazine copy will be read by 10 other students along with a teacher. That means we have a readership multiplier effect of 10, which brings the readership to 5 million readers in that small state, all age below 40. That is, we use all forms of communication, plays, quizzes, paradoxes, folk tales, poems, snippets, everything was used. And the editor was a professor of chemistry, Professor Shivadas. We call him the Asimov of Kerala because, like Isaac Asimov, he has written 200 books for children in Malayalam language, enriched the language in his lifetime with high quality, high density material. And he not only produced this as the editor of this Eureka magazine, he also generated a generation of new writers who are able to continue and sustain and nurture that development of science literature today. So the science capital for the children at the front end of the supply chain is being ensured and sustained with this Eureka magazine. Here is a profile of the diversity of the front covers of the magazine to which we were contributing. This is about 40 years old exclusively. Now, from early childhood science literacy, we moved on to the next segment of adult literacy culture. science communication, science literacy, and science numeracy should reach out to the elder population also. We have a mechanical engineer, KK, we call him Krishna Kumar. He took upon himself as the icon or the ambassador of this project. 0.1 million volunteers concentrated, and in 1 year, they were able to spread the message of literacy. The classical example is neoliterates. Here is an old lady, 96 years, obtaining functional literacy. By functional literacy, we mean ability to read, ability to write, to the extent of a signature for a bank clearance and calculations for normal daily financial operations. That's what we define functional literacy as. We could do that remarkably well. And today, the literacy rate of my state is 95%, which is considered very, very significant. The medium used for communication of this literacy campaign was a fusion between science and art. We have formed a new genre of literature, which is called fact fiction fusion screen. This is called creative science literature. Science, barren and sterile, when stated in monotonous scientific terms, is converted into living, vibrant metaphors, so that we can convey its context to the people, including to the old lady whom I am showing over here. And the medium which we used was folk arts, street plays. I will come to that, and that will be a single critical variable of European contribution. The classic book of Life of Galileo by Bertolt Brecht has been used as a powerful tool in spreading the message of science. This particular book, Life of Galileo, was translated, transliterated, and transmuted into Malayalam language by a group of scientists, with the result that it may not be having high fidelity with the original, but it has absolute value as far as the scientificalization of society is concerned. We did that. With this, we have the Euro Galileo, that is today Galileo Galilei is a hero in my home state. The Malayalam version prepared by us was played throughout the length of my state, 500 kilometers by traveling by 3 theater groups. 90 thespians enacted, and there were a good number of females in that. 30 shows were conducted in 1 year, and 30 shows were prepared simultaneously to run, and 183 performances were done in 1 year. That was a remarkable achievement. It was a remarkable achievement for 2 reasons. A contemporary society could hear the classic voice of a philosopher of science, and whose basic foundations are vital for us even today when we are trying to create a scientific culture or a scientific temper. The methodology we employed for raising funds, it was an expensive theatrical program for us that I will show you a short while ago. But by the time our publication science literary material has improved to such an extent, we could sell our science publications for 100,000 euros in that year. When we sell for 100,000 euros, 20% of that comes to us as commission. That commission, 20% of 100,000 euros were used for the Galileo's theater shows throughout the state. That is how we raised the money, and that is how we paid our creative performance. You can see some of the scenes I have captured from this. It was a very well articulated play in theatrical perfection. The costumes, the levels of the auditorium, of the proscenium, the devices and artifacts we have used. Look at the costumes. There was in nano details perfection was kept to the original level. The play was such a success. Even today, this is remaining fresh in the lingering memory of the present generation. This is hardly 7 years old. This has gone on. We are now thinking of a redoing of that. As the play was going on, our poets, our literary figures, our orators, our rhetoric specialists, they use the platform in great detail to give you a taste of 4 lines from a song or a poem which we versified and which reverberated my homeland for 1 full year in the regional language about Galileo, which is today learned by rote and reproduced by students in classrooms. And textbook mentions this. I will recite this in Greek and Latin to all of you, but still for poetic justice, I should mention the 4 lines which is still lingering in our memory as part of the Galileo campaign. Adidhiram Addehamodi, Nyanenda Diga Prasangam Nadati Natil, Uru Cardinalalla, Uttapatra Chirulumai, Airam Cardinalmar, Urimichuanalam, Bhumi Chutitirium, Divagara Mandalati. That's in my Malayalam version. This is what the children were singing. This is what the thespians were singing and translated into English. Galileo asserted boldly, what untrue speech have I made? What untrue speech have I made? Not one, not even 1,000 cardinals come with their charge sheets against me. Earth will still move around the sun. Epersimoi, epersimoi. This is a recurring refrain in scientific Kerala today. After creating the scientific temper and psyche, we believe that science is not technology. We know that science answers questions, whereas technology solves problems. We create an integrated rural technology. And in the integrated rural technology, the first project we took was to make a house fireplace. In Kerala, the kitchen was a very dirty place. We use firewood, which doesn't burn properly, doesn't get adequate oxygen. It's lacrimatory. The housemaker, the women in the kitchen cry. So we scientists involved in this rural technology got and designed, developed, demonstrated, and deployed 500,000 fireplaces in Kerala. And with this, we got access to the kitchen. And once you get access to the kitchen, you get access to the heart and minds of the people of the house. So that is how we marketed popular science movement. And one mechanical engineer, RVG Menon, was in charge of this program. From that, we moved on to our environmental program. We fought 3 battles. One was Silent Valley. Silent Valley is a pristinely pure tropical forest. A 100 megawatt hydroelectric project was to be built there. We said that this project will inundate the land around and it will be a threat to the flora and fauna. And there is a very unique type of monkey staying there and it will be affecting the habitat of that monkey. So people thought this is a fight between man and monkey. And the industrial energy lobby said that this is the fight between man and monkey. Man should prevail and not monkey. At that time, another European trained Keralite, Professor N.G.K. Menon, the discoverer of K-meson, he was advisor to the president. He was advisor to the powers at the center, to the prime minister. He said that this pristine purity will be preserved as a national park. We did that. Then we had a fight with Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola was closing to the end and the groundwater was affected. And therefore, we fought against Coca-Cola and we asked them to go. Then we attempted decentralization of our culture. We have a womanly state, an economics PhD worked on it, and we decentralized the power structure. These are the PSM processes we use: social mobilization, democratization, mass conscientization, demand from below, collective action, resource map for people's program. If you look at the 5 decades of growth, We have the pure popularization phase, applied science for revolution, critical problem analysis, alternatives in the fourth decade, and presently we are engaging in creating a social network all around the country. This is my last slide. All of our engineering scientists who are the prime movers of this program, 60,000 people. It was originally started 55 years ago. All of us were trained on the sensitive elevations of higher physics, nuclear physics, and engineering. And apart from that sophisticated training, we also had been to other countries, spend our time studying their culture, their scientific culture, and their scientific communication culture in greater detail so that we can adapt it and adopt it. That was the short story of the long novel of science communication in Kerala. Thank you very much for the attention given to me. Thank you.